Every season of Survivor is a story. There are main characters, sidekicks, comic reliefs, and villains. A good season of Survivor tells a compelling story. It will grip you and have you rooting for someone and against someone else. You will want to watch episode after episode to see what happens next until it all finishes with a hopefully satisfying conclusion. Each story that we look at together will go through one character's journey from beginning to end, from the time that they're introduced until they inevitably get their torch snuffed or win the game. We will look at every character moment and strategic move to determine whether they were a hero or a villain and whether they were a good or bad strategist. With that, welcome to Once Upon an Island. For reference, we will only be observing what the TV show is showing us and what story is being told through the show. No future seasons will be mentioned, as the story and characters here have no idea about what happens in those future seasons. All character moments and strategic moves are interpreted with the mindset of what the story is trying to tell us. And before we start, I want to thank you for watching what I make and ultimately supporting what I do here with liking, commenting, and sharing. For only a few bucks a month on Patreon, you can pick what videos I make, watch all of this channel's content early, chat with other fans of the show, and even get exclusive videos every month. With that, let's jump into another epic story.
39 days, 18 people, 1 survivor.
Chris Daugherty, a 33-year-old highway construction worker from Ohio, was the winner on Survivor's 9th season, Survivor Vanuatu, and by the time he finished playing, Survivor had seen a man actually win a season with a gender split, in the unlikeliest of scenarios given how much the women dominate the entire season. So how does he pull off a victory against these impressive odds? Let's find out. Survivor Vanuatu opens up in a very unique way as Chef tells the players that, hey, you're about to take place in a local ritual and you need to remember that this is not your homeland and you need to be respectful of what is about to happen. Now, after the crazy opening ceremony, the men and women are officially split into 2 separate tribes, and Chris actually likes this since the women are conniving, but men, he knows he can manipulate men into doing what he wants, which really sets the stage for who he is this season.
Men against women, it's perfect. I can outsmart 8 men a hell of a lot quicker than I can outsmart 8 women. Women stick together, they're thick as thieves. Men are deceiving, mischievous, untrusting human beings. Men I can manipulate.
The men are at camp working on building their fire, and Chris observes how JP is jacked, but he's also really dumb. And this is proven when we see JP repeatedly say the word amber instead of ember. I half expected Boston Rob to round the corner to make sure no one was talking about his girl.
JP wants to prove himself bad. He's about 30 years old, he don't have a clue. He's got the frame, but he ain't got the brain.
We actually had a hot amber, which was very pink. I think we were all excited to see a hot amber, but none of us knew what to do with it. We're just kind of like, yeah, we've got amber.
Then a twist occurs. Chad, a member of the men's tribe, reveals to everyone that he has a prosthetic leg, and while some see this and have a negative reaction, Chris instead pumps up Chad and says that is very inspirational for him to be on Survivor with this leg.
I lost it about 20 months ago.
Dude, it's inspirational that you're here. It's awesome.
It's time for the immunity challenge, and the race is pretty much neck and neck until the balance beam, when it comes down to Chris and Scout, who has a bad knee and is super old.
No, Chris, to the back!
And that's not the only time Chris is gonna fall off. Oh no, he keeps falling off time after time after time, and he essentially single-handedly loses this challenge for the tribe.
Across the finish line, the women win the first challenge.
Back at camp, he takes this all in stride, and he actually has a new fun fact to tell everyone about himself.
To tell you guys a little bit more about myself, I'm not real good at a balance. I really wanted to make it across the beam. You know, if I had wings, I'd have made it. You know, I would have made myself go across the beam.
But Chris knows that losing that one challenge is not the end of his game. It's not even close, because the game is about other things than balancing.
This game, you outwit, outplay, outlast people. You don't outbalance them.
The discussion about who should be voted out ramps up, and the younger men all talk to Sarge about possibly voting out Chris first.
Johnny? Who? With this fight? Chris? It has to be.
But Sarge isn't with them. Why is that? Because him and Chris have formed a 5-person alliance of the older guys to take out the 4 younger guys, meaning Chris holds the numbers advantage.
If we're gonna stay in this, the old people, the only way we're gonna get $1 million, one of us, is if we get rid of the young people.
I prepared to come here mentally, and I prepared to play the game. I'm not vulnerable at all. We got a plan.
Jeff asked Chris at Tribal Council about him losing the challenge or whether that could end his game, and Chris says, no way. Everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses that they bring to the tribe, and he is no exception.
The first night, Rory, he had some ideas. He was getting on people's nerves. Did I all of a sudden develop an opinion about him and think, you know what? He's going home first time I go to Tribal Council. No, I didn't think that. Everybody's going to help the team some way, sometime down along the line. And that's all I think about.
The vote goes according to plan when the older men band together and vote out Brooke 5-4.
Brooke, tribe has spoken.
Now, the first impressions of Chris are interesting. While it is true he can't balance to save his life, he sure has nailed the social aspect of Survivor when he talks up Chad and says he values Rory despite what others think. Plus, it helps that he's also in the majority alliance. Despite that painstaking loss, he is in a good position in his tribe, and the way he talks in confessionals is delivered with such grandiose that it is hard to ignore him. The story is telling us that he is going far, and he has a good grasp of what this game is truly all about. There are a lot of big characters on the men's tribe, so unfortunately for the story, but fortunately for Chris's game, he is sort of pushed to the side as the drama unfolds. Episode 2 is quiet for him as the men win immunity, so we move on to episode 3 where a new twist is unveiled. Both tribes are going to tribal council no matter what.
Here's the twist. Both tribes will vote out 1 member tonight. Separate tribal councils, 2 people going home.
The younger men talk up Sarge about voting out Rory and flipping on his 5 older guy alliance, but Chris stops this thought in its tracks as he says, sure, we can vote out Rory, but let's hold off until at least the younger guys are gone first.
You don't have to worry about no one in our pack, I guarantee you that.
I'm like,
But dude, I understand what you're saying, and we'll deal with it, but this just isn't the time.
The older men do stick together as they vote out JP 5-3.
JP, tribe has spoken.
Episode 4 sees John and the younger men just not understanding the point of Survivor. Why are the fat older guys running the tribe when there are good looking younger men with better personalities who should be in charge? That's his opinion. John doesn't get Survivor, but Chris does.
I can't stand the way that this tribe ended up. The good young guys that have great personalities and are good athletes are all gone. Why are we letting fat dudes run the show? This doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they think their plan will work. None of them are very athletic. The bottom line is a lot of these challenges are physical, so we'll see what happens.
The men do go on to lose reward and immunity, so at Tribal, Chris dives into what he thinks the rest of the season will look like. He says he isn't sure if the women will stick together once the game becomes individual, and Jeff says, well, why wouldn't they? Which causes Chris to explain that everyone has to make moves that are best for their individual games, and that doesn't always mean just sticking with your original tribe once it's an individual game.
Well, there's nothing that makes me think they wouldn't stick together, but I'm just saying, look, you're a team at first. You got a tribe. You have no choice. But the bottom line is, looking ahead, individually, you got to make sure you do what's right for you.
Brady is then voted out 6-1.
Brady, tribe has spoken.
Episode 5 unleashes Vanuatu's inner rage, and yes, it is an earthquake.
Holy!
But not only is there a physical earthquake, but a metaphorical one as the tribes are swapped up and Chris stays on Lepevi where the men are up 4-2 and they now look way more stacked than the new Yasser tribe, which is proven right away when it comes down to Chris versus Amy to win reward. And
Chris really working it.
And I got it! Lepevi wins reward! Pringles near the waterfall!
while on the reward, Twyla is just loving the new tribe she is on, namely because of Chris and Sarge.
Summer's great! Yeah, you got the summer!
I can relate to these guys. I'm loving it. I got something to talk about. Yes. Do you take yours in comp when you get overtime?
Yeah, oh yeah, I max out every year.
Wow, dude.
Life is good for Lepevi, and at the immunity challenge, Bubba, who is now in Yasser, tries to tell Chris to throw the challenge. And this is a loaded thing to ask of Chris because it's kind of the last minute.
Chris.
Think about the merge.
Now, despite knowing what happens later on in the story, it is very last minute, as I said before, and doesn't make too much sense as to why Chris would throw it, since we don't even see him acknowledge Bubba. We don't even know if Chris heard him, since Bubba softly whispers this. But it is clear that the show had him re-say it later to make it loud enough for us to hear. Just watch his lips move when the words happen, and you can see how they don't exactly line up.
Curious. Think about the merge.
And we never even hear Chris mention this event happening for the rest of the season. The only person we know who heard it for a fact was Amy, and that was because she was right next to him and not on another mat. However, the show does want us to think that Chris heard him, so we have to assume that Chris not throwing the challenge here is dumb. Episode 6 begins and Chris is worried about Julie. He says that Julie is someone who can sweet talk her way into the final 5 and win the money. And what he is saying is pretty much confirmed, as it is shown to us how she already seems to be working her charm on Sarge and Chad, making Chris look right.
It's interesting having a pretty girl playing the game, because somebody like that can fly underneath the radar and sweet talk their way into the final 5, and then, you know, boom, next thing you know, they're sitting there waiting to win the money.
You know, I think the co-ed thing is working really well for our tribe now, because I think it's just a morale thing. It was getting a little stagnant there for a while.
The Lepevi tribe then wins the reward challenge, which involves wrangling pigs back into a pen. Back at camp, Twyla genuinely trashes on her old tribe, which makes her appear to be all in with her new tribe.
I just loved it. Hey, pretty ass girls. Anyone get their fingernails dirty? Girls say, I can't do it.
Lepevi then wins immunity. So we slide into episode 7, where everyone starts dogging on John about how useless and lazy he is at camp, which he does admit to, and Chris labels him as someone who will just coast through the game if you let them.
I don't want to judge the dude, but
He's the kind of person that coasts through the game. Yeah. That's exactly what he is. And he's not coasting through this game with us in it.
No way.
Lepevi then goes on to lose reward and immunity, and back at camp, a tough decision has to be made. Do they vote out John, or do they pick off Julie or Twyla instead? Chad argues that Julie seems the most likely to flip back to the women.
I'm not confident Julie's staying with this dude. Well, if we merge, she's going right with the women.
Chris doesn't believe this whole men versus women thing is truly happening, since Yasser in the last episode just voted out Lisa instead of Rory. If there was an all-women's alliance, why would they vote out one of their own and not Rory? However, based on what we've seen of Julie, Chad is right and Chris is wrong.
I don't think there's so much women, or they wouldn't have voted off Lisa. I don't think they're hung up on just the women.
Before Tribal Council, we witness what seems like a pointless conversation. We know John is about to be voted out, and yet Chris, knowing what is about to take place, BS's his way through the conversation with John so hard that we must be witnessing a sign of things to come later on down the line. Why else show it?
What does Chad say? Anything?
Sometimes I don't know where Chad's coming from. Every time, it doesn't matter how much you talk to him, you still go to Tribal Council with doubt.
I have to at least put my faith in one person, and I do with Chris, because I think me and Chris can really do some damage when it comes down to the dwindling of both tribes.
John is then promptly voted out 5-1.
John, tribe has spoken.
Episode 8 begins and Chris is clearly dead set on the remaining 5 members of Lepevi going to the end together.
Now does everybody trust each other?
Yeah.
We stay 5, we're solid. We go to the end.
Now, Julie has been flirting with Sarge from almost the time she arrived at Lepevi, and she finally makes him crack by convincing him to go butt naked on the beach, which he is okay with because, after all, he's an exotic traveler.
Julie is an exhibitionist. I mean, she's comfortable with it. And I told him I'm comfortable with it because I've been in Europe.
Chris and Chad catch all of this taking place, and hilarity ensues.
Sarge! What are you doing?
What are you doing?
I just glanced over there. Sarge has his ass hanging out. Probably is an image that will never leave my memory.
Julie is a bad influence!
Chris and Chad then talk about the women, and they know that Julie and Twyla are solid as a rock. Neither one of those women are flipping on them when the inevitable merge happens. But when talking about who they want to go to the final 2 with, Chris accidentally makes a pun.
I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think both of you got a leg up on me. I think both. Dude, I didn't mean to say.
No, I
totally did.
Listen, no. There's so many puns, dude. There's a million.
God, I didn't just say that.
We then learn something about Chris's strategy that we did not know before. He has been going around and making final 2 deals with pretty much everyone, which is great for now, but makes him look very untrustworthy to us.
And the final 2.
All right, man.
I have the same agreement with Sarge, and I've pretty much made the same agreement with Julie.
But now it is finally time.
Uh-oh.
Drop your box.
You are now one tribe. For the first time since day one, I'm putting the game behind me, and I'm going to just have some fun with these people that I've never met.
Everyone has merged, and the men are down 6-4, but that shouldn't matter if Chris's assessment is right and Julie and Twyla aren't going to flip on them. However, Twyla and Julie tell Chad that they want Rory to go first and that they can get Amy later on. She doesn't have to go now, but the men want Amy now since Rory can help them. Chris says he feels confident about Twyla sticking with him, and she even tells him this to his face, that whatever he says goes, but there's a lot of her body language that kind of says otherwise.
I just told Chris, I said, you all make the choice. If you want to vote for Amy, just let me know. Just let me know what you all want to do, and I'll follow it.
At Tribal Council, what do you know? Twyla and Julie flip back to the women, and Rory is voted out 6-4.
Rory, the tribe has spoken.
Episode 9 begins and it has finally hit Chris. The gender split is real and Julie and Twyla really did just flip on him. He takes it all in stride though, which is saying a lot considering how many people this season will flip out on each other after the tribal council when something bad happens to them.
So this is men against women. It's the first time I realized that.
But the beauty of it is that the game's not over. Anything can happen.
At the reward challenge, it is basically revealed that Eliza is at the bottom of the women's alliance. So the men band together and figure that maybe, just maybe, they can have the women flip on Eliza, which is a good thought, but wouldn't aligning with Eliza be even better for their long-term game plan?
Eliza is definitely in doubt of her position with the girls, and she is vulnerable. We got to take Eliza out.
There's no way
we
we're
have
sitting
got
back.
to totally sabotage Eliza's game and send her home.
Julie and Leanne go on reward and they come back with chicken wings, but the men are still out at sea, so the women sneak off and eat all of the wings, save the bones, and when the men return from the water, the women pretend like, oh, we just now returned from the reward, and all we brought back were these bones and not the wings we just ate out in the forest. And the men act like the bones are great and they just have no idea what really happened.
All we can do is bring back the bones.
No kidding? You brought back chicken bones?
The average American would be like, oh my God, that is the lowest form of insult I could ever imagine. But to the Atlanta tribe, it was like Christmas.
Before Tribal Council, Chris tells us that the game has changed and that from now on to survive, he is going to have to filter all of his moves through the lens of, will this please the women?
In this game, your strategy changes just immediately. And since the ladies got here, I learned real quick from the first night that you gotta watch what you say, that they're a tight-knit group, and that if you want to survive, you're gonna have to please them.
Which is made even more curious when he votes for Sarge and says, this is a vote for you, Sarge, not against you.
I'm gonna burn every one of them. Just let them open a door. This is for you, not against you.
Sarge is then voted out 7-1-1.
Sarge, the tribe has spoken.
This is now the point of the story where the tides have turned. Chris is a man playing full tilt, which should please Colby Donaldson, as he is going all guns blazing against the women through cons, lies, deception, and of course a whole lot of schmoozing. Chris is going full BS on all of them, kind of like what he did with John in the pre-merge, and it all begins here in episode 10 when back at camp he lies to the women, says that Sarge told him to vote him out. Chris is only saying this to them to possibly get close to the women who he knows holds the power and he needs to please.
Right before we started walking, he grabbed me by the shoulder and told me to vote for him. I asked him why. He said, just do it. Everybody else is. I voted for Sarge.
This Sarge story is all about making them feel bad, and Chris is going to come at them every which way when it comes to how they feel about him. Logic is almost completely out the window, as a lot of what Chris is going to do doesn't make complete logical sense, but works on an emotional level.
I told them that Sarge told me to vote for him, but he didn't. I voted for Sarge to stay close to the women and, go further in the game.
Scout then pitches an idea to Chris and Chad to join her and Twyla to flip this game on its head and vote out Eliza next. And of course, they're completely on board with this, as they should be.
And vote Eliza off. And then from there, we got to get rid of Amy immediately. Yeah. We've got to get Amy out because she's
the brains. Okay.
And we'll play ball with you guys because we just will. It'll be a lot more fun.
It would. It will be.
Chris then explains exactly what I said before, that his game plan from here on out is to tug at the heartstrings of the women, make them feel for him, and open up some cracks that he can take advantage of.
You question a woman's character, you question a woman's ability, she'll snap your neck. You open up your heart, show a woman you're vulnerable, then they start thinking with their heart. That's when they open up that back door. That's what's happened this time.
However, the flip that Scout proposed won't happen since it would cause a 4-4 tie vote, and Twyla is unwilling to risk her game on a tie, which would lead to a rock draw. This can only mean that Chris or Chad will be voted out next.
And somebody's gonna have to draw a rock tonight and go home. Would you like to be out of this game by a freaking stone? Well, I wouldn't.
And unfortunately, that's exactly what happens as Chad is voted out.
Chad, Travis spoken.
Episode 11 starts with Chris throwing Twyla and Scout under the bus by telling Leanne their plan to flip on Eliza with the guys. He's only doing this to cause distrust amongst the women, and considering he is the last man standing, why not?
Scout and Twyla come to me and Chad, wanting to form an alliance with us.
Except that Twyla and Scout may not appreciate him giving them this information and would know that Chris leaked it, because who else would have?
I narked out Scout and Twyla. Let them know that they had conspired with me and Chad for an alliance, and I just mixed things up as soon as we got back. It's gonna be a mess.
This episode brings with it the family visit, and while Chris does get very emotional when he sees his girlfriend, there is actually even better news. That is a surprise to Jeff Probst.
Yes, we're gonna get married.
Yeah. Wait, I missed that.
They're getting married.
I want to address something that the show never mentions once, despite it being very plainly obvious to see many, many times this season. Julie wears Chris's hat a lot, and sometimes even Amy does, showing how they like him even if they're not aligned with him.
Oh my God, Chris!
It's those little things that show you how Chris is making friends with everyone. What Chris told Leanne earlier in the episode does put her on a warpath to see if what he said holds any water, and she talks to Twyla and Scout, who do indeed confirm what he said and makes him look credible.
She did. Not me.
She just completely confirmed the story, but she told me that it was all Scout's idea.
It is immunity time, and Chris's neck is on the line. Why wouldn't it be? He's the last man. The challenge has a wrinkle to it though, as everyone's family member comes to help, and in this case, it doesn't help Chris at all, as he loses, and makes her feel incredibly guilty for possibly tanking his game.
Come on, baby! No, don't say that, babe.
Amy, wins immunity!
Sorry, you're not gonna go home, are you? I'm going home tonight, babe. You are.
Back at camp, the women make a collective decision to save Chris for one tribal and instead vote out Eliza. That's a good turn of events. Julie informs him of this news, and he is amazed how the women are changing things without him doing anything.
So it's solid, not on me. All of us just said it, so, I mean, it's 100%, but if it does change, I'll tell you.
It's like being in a tornado. It is crazy. I don't even have to do something to change the tide of the game. There's 6 women living with me. They'll change it themselves.
However, that isn't the only surprise, as Twyla is finally fed up with Leanne and Amy running the show. Part of her frustration does stem from that Leanne investigation that Chris did propel. She offers him to flip the entire game if he can sway Eliza to vote with them, and yeah, he would love to do that.
If you would just get Eliza, so if you want to change his whole outlook, vote this way. You've got 3 other people backing you up.
Am I willing to do it? Damn right I'm willing to do it. I'll turn the tide. I'll take the risk right now. So I talked to Eliza.
He then approaches Eliza and uses Julie's exact words to try and convince her to flip with him, Twyla, and Scout. Eliza is very unsure, as she has zero reason to trust Twyla and Scout, but he does his darndest to convince her that she doesn't need to trust them, she just needs to trust him, and to still make the move, otherwise she'll be voted off tonight.
I am just telling you the truth. I've never lied to you. I'm not using it.
But the thing that worries me is that Scout and Twyla are lying to both of us.
Please. Take this risk.
Thankfully for Chris and Eliza, she does flip and saves herself, as Leanne is voted out 4-3 instead.
Leanne, Travis spoken. Time for you to go.
Back at camp, the women immediately bicker, though it is mainly Amy and Twyla who do this, and Chris just sits back and soaks up all of the wonderfulness he is seeing.
The bitterness started as soon as we got back to camp. I'm living with 5 wildcats right now. It's gonna be good.
I'm sorry, that's the truth of my life, that I'm pretty happy.
Twyla down and
Twyla put herself down. I didn't swear on my family member.
At the reward challenge, Chris and Julie are fighting one-on-one for the last spot, and he wins it in a very dramatic fashion.
It's coming down to Chris and Julie. Place finisher going on the overnight reward.
On the reward challenge, him, Eliza, and Amy get hot showers. Correction, Eliza and Amy get hot showers. What does Chris get?
We all got to shower. They didn't leave me no hot water. bitches.
On that reward, Amy does her best to try and convince Chris and Eliza to flip on Twyla and Scout, and instead, why not work with her? Which is just dumb for their games. Why would they do that? But Chris already knows this, and he convinces Eliza this would be a bad move because their current Final Four deal sees them going to the end with Twyla and Scout. Easy competition.
Something that I think would be really smart for you guys is to break up Scout and Twyla.
She's so 40. You know, does she think I'm stupid? Final Four. And look at our competition.
I know.
A 60-year-old woman and Twyla.
Remember this because this is what Chris is thinking all the way through until the end, and he never actually wavers on it. Chris wins his first individual immunity challenge and finds it funny how it wasn't on a physical competition.
Amy takes herself out. Chris wins immunity.
It is a little bit humorous that it did take a non-physical challenge to beat the chicks. But I'm looking at it as though I've achieved something great here and I have immunity. That's all that matters right now.
Eliza stays true to Chris, and at Tribal Council, Amy is voted out 4-2.
Amy, tribe has spoken.
Episode 13 begins, and Twyla fights with Eliza about swearing on her son's name, which is something Twyla did with Amy and Leanne in the past and has almost nothing to do with Chris, but Chris does recognize that this fight could cause a division in his perfect Final Four alliance.
I knew that it wasn't a good thing what Twyla was doing. She definitely offended Eliza. Eliza being part of this 4-person alliance with Scout, Twyla, and myself, you know, it's important to try to keep a level, you know, understanding. She's taken a road she doesn't need to take. It's dangerous for her position in the game.
At the reward challenge, Julie wins, and she chooses to take Chris with her. While on the volcano lunch, she tries to talk him up about flipping on Scout and Twyla to go with her and Eliza instead. Chris listens to her questions and answers them with lies, and basically BS's his whole way through the conversation, with Julie being none the wiser.
So who do you feel most loyal to?
Since the merge, you've never done nothing else. You've done nothing but help me since then. I see that.
Chris was very open-minded, and he's open to help me progress in the game. So Chris is my rock right now.
Back at camp, Eliza then follows up what Julie said. She pitches this as a guaranteed Final 3, which is true, and she's right about this. Chris knows he would be number 3 though, and Julie would probably beat him in the end if they were there together. So he BS's Eliza really hard as well, since he would rather stick with Twyla and Scout, a much easier Final 3 to beat.
I'm open-minded to exactly what you said because me and Julie had talked and we had discussed us 3. And the most screwed up thing about it is I think they all trust me. So it's getting really crazy.
He then reassures Twyla and Scout that he is with them no matter what, and basically tells us exactly what we already knew.
Not changing. I mean, don't even doubt it. I would tell you, you got it? We're going all the way to the Final 3.
Later on, Twyla doesn't have to work too hard to catch Chris and Eliza talking secretly behind her back because they're just doing it right there at camp. This causes a fight between Twyla and Eliza, and Twyla asks Chris what he thinks about all of this, but he just plays dumb and avoids all confrontation.
I don't know, I just feel like you're with me. You got immunity. You're right, I do have immunity tonight, but if I don't have immunity tomorrow night, then who's gone, T?
Now, Chris, what are you thinking?
What? I'm just laying here, and they have it.
Before Tribal Council, Chris says you can't trust any of the others who are left in the game since they are all women, and women are conniving, which sounds dumb since he is probably the most conniving out of all of them left in the game.
They're all women. How do you trust any of them? So, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm messing with both sides.
At Tribal Council, Eliza and Julie are both blindsided when Julie is voted out 3-2.
Julie, tribe has spoken.
It is finale time. Chris versus Twyla versus Scout versus Eliza. Right after Tribal Council, he tells us very coldly that voting out Julie was just revenge, proving how hard he was BSing her earlier.
I voted off Julie tonight at Tribal Council. Oh well, Julie had it coming. She pulled a fast one on me after the merge. I got her back. It's all in good game.
While tending the fire, Eliza is floored. She trusted Chris, and he assures Eliza that he is still in an alliance with her, and what he did was for the best of both of their games. This is all a lie though, as it is only best for his game, but to his credit, she believes him.
Are gonna stick with an alliance to me?
That's never changed. What I did today was for our alliance. You'll see, okay? You have no faith. Why don't you just put a little bit of faith into the person you aligned with, huh?
It is time for the epic Final Four immunity challenge, and Chris pulls it off in an over-dramatic fashion.
I got it! Chris! Yeah! Wins immunity! Yeah!
Back at camp, Chris tells Twyla that she is safe and Eliza's going home, so why not rile up Eliza and make her mad before they go vote? However, Twyla recognizes exactly what Chris is trying to do to her.
Oh, I know.
So just wait about a half hour before and just ride her like a dog.
I want to gloat, but that's just what Chris wants me to do. See, the more I piss everybody off right before they leave, the more easier it is if we're the final two that he gets all the votes.
Chris then proceeds to lie to Eliza that they are voting out Twyla when he actually has no plans of doing so, as we have plainly seen. But once again, Eliza believes him.
We're both gonna vote for Twyla. And whatever happens, happens. Twyla thinks you're gonna go home. She has no idea. They don't know.
At Tribal Council, only Eliza is blindsided, as she is voted out 3-1. However, when her torch is snuffed, she gives Chris a death glare, and Chris's reaction is terrible for his game, but priceless nonetheless.
Eliza, tribe spoken.
Back at camp, Chris paints a picture to Twyla and Scout by saying he is nothing like Eliza. Unlike her, he actually sticks to his alliances, which is of course a lie.
Chris, did you see that look Eliza gave you? That looks was
I don't know what her problem is. I just stick with my alliance. That's all I do. I ain't like her. See you later.
At the final 3 immunity challenge, it is a tough one, and Chris does try to cut a deal with Twyla and even attempts to guilt her into dropping, but she is not budging at all. He will have to earn this win the old-fashioned way.
I've proved to you 2 times in a row, man. You're the one that turned your back on me at LePevy.
I might fall off this thing or ram this thing through my ass, but I sure in hell ain't gonna step down off this pole.
And he does just that by securing his final 2 spot with his 3rd individual immunity win for the season.
Twyla, pierced your paper marker. Chris wins the final immunity.
At Tribal Council, Chris takes no chances on who he will be going against at Final Tribal, as Scout is voted out, and he takes Twyla, the most unlikable female aside from Eliza, to Final Tribal Council.
Scout, tribe spoken.
It is day 39. Now, typically nothing ever happens this day except for some sweet reflections on the player's time in the game, but there is no rest for the wicked, as Chris has another trick up his sleeve. He chooses to tell Twyla that at Final Tribal, he isn't taking any crap from anyone, and Twyla shouldn't either. And I'm not positive if she sees through this like she did earlier, but the storytelling makes it appear that she does not.
I've been thinking about Tribal tonight.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna take no crap from any of them, are you?
I'm gonna try not to.
I just sit and think, well, I know Twyla ain't gonna take no crap, so I'm not gonna take no crap.
I'm not.
Great, Twyla. You let them know you don't give a crap and that you come here to win. Chris isn't gonna do that. Chris is gonna sit back and let Twyla put the last nail in her coffin.
The two of them do share one fun moment before the seriousness of Final Tribal Council, as they both look to take a quick break and...
What an ending.
Chris, Twyla, welcome to your final Tribal Council.
It is time. Final Tribal Council. Chris and Twyla both have to answer to the jury about their actions that they took in this game and hopefully earn the jury's respect for what they did. Chris's opening speech has him saying he was loyal to his alliances, which is true for some and a complete lie to others, but really he hinges his opening speech on wanting to be rewarded for overcoming great odds, and this is a bit weak. It doesn't do much to tell the jury how he did that or why this is more valuable than Twyla barreling through everyone and flipping on them.
I think I'm the person that overcome more odds than anybody. I was the last man standing with 6 women. I just think I deserve to win this game because of the odds I overcome.
Eliza is the first juror, and she comes in hot, guns a-blazing as you might say. She wants apologies from both Chris and Twyla, and yet Twyla will not apologize at all and instead fights with Eliza.
You feel that I'm a lying, deceptive bitch? Well, I think you're a spoiled, rotten little child. If you don't owe me an apology for how you feel about me, why should I apologize to you for the way you feel about me?
This leaves the door wide open as Chris immediately apologizes, no questions asked.
You're right, I owe you an apology. I broke our pact, and I am sorry.
Thank you.
Julie is the second juror, and unlike Eliza, she doesn't come in hot. However, like Eliza, she feels extremely hurt by Chris and asks him why. Why did he do this to her? Chris BS's and schmoozes her so hard, and while some of what he is saying is truthful, he knew he was voting her out the whole time, but this does seem to make her feel a little bit better.
I didn't play you, Julie. I lied to you, and I let my heart get in the way. And at the end, I didn't even know if I was gonna write your name down. And I decided at the booth, I played the game. I did you wrong, Julie, and I'm sorry I lied to you.
Leanne is the third juror, and she wants to know why she shouldn't vote for Twyla and secure the season its female winner. Chris says because that same female is the one who caused the flip and tanked your game, Leanne. He claims that while he was part of the flip, he was in survival mode and had no other choice but to vote out Leanne if he wanted to stay.
Twyla come to me and offered me a chance to further myself in the game. I took advantage, you know, when the opportunity came.
Amy is the fourth juror, and Chris keeps schmoozing as he says Amy is too nice to win and Chris just isn't as kind as she is, really buttering her up.
I think that you're on the jury because you have a soft heart. I think you're on the jury because I didn't give you a break. You give me a break.
Chad is the fifth juror, and frankly, probably the only juror's vote that Chris has 100% locked down. Despite that, Chris says the $1 million blinded him and that the entire jury has good qualities to them that stop them from being able to win it all, but he lacks that good quality. He keeps kicking himself down and building them all up, and it is such BS, but it is beautiful and hilarious to witness.
I found that the money started talking. I started looking at getting to the end no matter what. Everybody sitting over there possesses a genuine quality that they look past the $1 million, and it's something I didn't do. It's something I'll take with me to try to become a better person.
Sarge is the sixth juror, and let's remember that Chris helped vote him out and even lied that Sarge told him to, which I'm sure got back to him when others went to the jury. Sarge says right away that he is voting for Twyla, but then asks Chris where their friendship stands despite not getting Sarge's vote. Chris says, hey, I don't need your vote, Sarge, to be friends with you, and you can bet for a fact that we're gonna go to a race together.
There's not a price on our friendship. We developed a friendship from the time we met. Give your vote to Twyla. We'll be friends after this game. We'll sit in Charlotte and watch the race. That's a fact. You got my word on it.
Scout is the last juror and basically recognizes all the BS Chris has been spewing and just laughs.
And Chris, you are bull up to your ears.
For Chris's closing speech, he smartly addresses every single juror and butters them all up, and I don't have the words to properly express this true work of art.
I did you wrong. And you're still like my little sister. And I brought you your hat. Chad and Sarge, no matter how you vote tonight, I still made two dear friends. So just vote from your heart. Eliza, you are absolutely right. I definitely owed you an apology.
In the end, it ends up working out as Chris does win 5-2.
Twyla. Twyla. Chris. Chris. Chris, the winner of Survivor Vanuatu.
So let's break this down. How is Chris as a character? Great. He was flamboyant, dramatic, and loved being a showman, especially when winning a challenge. He was nice to everyone and brought a positive vibe wherever he went, and his choice to fully embrace being the last man standing as part of who he was, and to turn full villain in the latter half of the game makes him a unique winner, as he took being a villainous winner in Survivor and made it fun in a way that no one has really done since Richard Hatch. He was not bland at all, and for that I salute him. However, he did make quite a few sexist remarks, nothing on the same level as Fairplay or Brian Heidick, but actually as a part of the narrative he was selling about how women are out to get him and he has to be this villain to beat them. It was bad and yet oh so good. Out of 30 character moments shown on the show, 9 were heroic and 21 were villainous, making Chris Daugherty a villain character on Survivor Vanuatu. Now, how is Chris as a strategist? A little dodgy in places, and frankly a lot of what he does should have backfired in his face, but he was so good at making friends with everyone and schmoozing them to no end that he smothered anything that could have killed him. He played with raw emotions at times and had a game plan and stuck to it, but was willing to be flexible with it when needed. He played ruthlessly once Sarge was voted out and took advantage of every opportunity he had to advance his game. It was crazy and yet satisfying when it all came to an end, especially when Chris puts on possibly one of the, if not the, best Final Tribal Council performance ever seen. Out of 63 strategic moments shown on the show, 46 were smart and 17 were dumb, making Chris Daugherty a smart strategist on Survivor Vanuatu. Thanks for watching. If you like the content you see here, then please consider supporting me in this channel on Patreon. Your financial support makes all of this possible, so thank you, and thank you for watching.